My husband suddenly filed for divorce. He told me I was a useless wife. He said I would never survive without him. Then he packed his things and left to live with a younger woman. He looked so confident when he said it. Like he had already won. I just smiled. Now he calls me over and over every day. I need to tell the story clearly. Not to create drama. Not to embarrass anyone. But because I spent years believing I was incapable of living without him. And I was wrong. James and I were married for 15 years. That is a long time to build a life with someone. A long time to trust someone. A long time to believe you are a team. When he handed me the divorce papers, he did not look sad. He did not look nervous. He looked proud. He said his lawyer called it a generous offer, considering I had contributed almost nothing to the marriage. I remember sitting on the couch holding those papers while he talked about his new girlfriend. Her name was Aurora. He said she had ambition. He said she took care of herself. He said she had followers online and was going places. He said I was stuck. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the signs were there. But when you love someone, you do not want to believe they are changing. Or maybe they were always like that and you just refuse to see it. It started with small changes. About 8 months ago, James became obsessed with fitness. He started waking up before sunrise to attend high-intensity workout classes. He bought new athletic clothes from expensive stores. He checked his smartwatch constantly. He tracked his steps, his calories, his heart rate. I told myself it was a good thing. We were not young anymore. Staying healthy matters. For Christmas, he bought me an exercise bike. A very expensive one. He reminded me often how much it cost. He also reminded me how little I used it. Then the late nights began. He said work was busy. Important meetings. Client dinners. He started hiding his phone when I walked into the room. He wore a new cologne he claimed was a free sample. He made comments about my appearance. Suggested new skincare products. Mentioned cosmetic procedures like they were normal maintenance. I take care of myself. I just do not spend hundreds of dollars chasing trends. One afternoon I was folding laundry and found a receipt in his pocket. It was from a jewelry store. Not a cheap store. A brand that most people associate with engagement rings and luxury gifts. We are not wealthy. We shop at discount stores. We drive an older car. Seeing that receipt felt like someone pressing a panic button inside my chest. I checked our joint bank account. Money had been disappearing slowly for months. Small amounts. 200 here. 300 there. Nothing large enough to cause immediate alarm. Just steady transfers labeled with ordinary things like repairs or maintenance. But when you add up small amounts over time, the total becomes very real. I waited until he came home. I showed him the receipt. Instead of denying it or pretending I was imagining things, he laughed. Actually laughed. He walked into his office, returned with an envelope, and tossed it onto the coffee table. He said he was planning to wait until the weekend, but since I was being curious, I could have it now. Inside were divorce papers. He said Aurora understood him. He said she supported his goals. He said she was younger and more driven. He said I had held him back. He told me I would be calling him within a week, begging to fix things. He said I would not survive on my own. He said he was doing me a favor by forcing me to grow up. I did not cry. I did not scream. I watched him pack his suitcase. He took his expensive clothes. His tablet. His gaming system. Even the good coffee machine. He left the cheaper one behind. After he left, the house felt hollow. I opened my laptop and started going through our accounts. That was the beginning of everything changing. I discovered he had been moving money since early in the year. I found credit card statements for restaurants and hotels I had never visited. I found payment histories that made me feel physically sick. I called my sister Vivian. She came over immediately. We stayed up all night sorting papers, making lists, taking screenshots, organizing everything. The next morning I called in sick to work and made an appointment with a divorce attorney. I also froze our joint credit cards. I had once seen a short video online explaining that you can request that in certain situations. I never thought I would need that information. Within one day, my phone showed dozens of missed calls from James. The first messages were angry. The next were threatening. Eventually they became desperate. He said we needed to talk calmly. He said I was overreacting. He said we could fix this if I stopped being dramatic. I did not respond. For the first week after he left, I stayed at Vivian's place. She has a child and the guest room is full of toys, so I slept on the couch. It was not comfortable, but it felt safe. Then I tried to buy something small online. My card was declined. That is when the full picture began to form. James had been transferring small amounts regularly. Nothing flashy. Just careful, quiet movements of money. He had separate accounts from the beginning of our marriage. He said it was practical. I believed him. Most of my paycheck went into our joint savings. I thought we were building a future together. He had been using that future to fund dates with someone else. I found receipts for fancy restaurants. Not the most expensive places in the world, but definitely more than we usually spent. Meanwhile, he complained when I bought basic household items. As I sorted through 15 years of paperwork, I found small signs of his double life. Coffee shop receipts near her apartment. Movie tickets from nights he claimed he was working late. He was not even hiding them carefully. Vivian called it financial abuse. That term felt dramatic to me at first. I did not think of myself as a victim. I just felt foolish. But slowly I began to understand that controlling money and information is a form of control. I met with my divorce attorney. She listened carefully. When I showed her the pattern of money transfers, her expression changed. She said we needed to move quickly to prevent further hiding of assets. I logged into an old shared email account and found confirmation for a credit card I did not know existed. It was not a huge card, just a small limit. But he had used it consistently near Aurora's neighborhood. I even found gym charges that did not match the expensive fitness studio he bragged about. It was all layers of performance. I opened my own bank account at a different bank. The woman at the counter was patient and kind. She showed me how to use the banking app. It was not complicated. I realized how often James had acted like these tasks were beyond me. He kept calling. Aurora sent me a message online suggesting we should talk sometime. I did not answer. There was nothing to discuss. My attorney advised me not to respond to either of them. So I focused on documentation. Screenshots. Statements. Dates. Copies. Weeks passed. I found a new job. Nothing glamorous. A customer service position at a local company. The pay was modest, but it was stable. On my first day, I ran into James in the elevator. He was dressed in his important meeting suit. Aurora stood beside him. The look on his face when he saw me carrying my work bag was something I will never forget. He had expected me to fall apart. Instead, I had started rebuilding. At work, my manager noticed I was detail-oriented. He asked me to help organize spreadsheets. I learned new software through online tutorials. I applied those skills to organizing evidence for my divorce case. When I handed my attorney a neatly arranged folder of transactions, she smiled. She said we would not even need a forensic accountant. During mediation, James entered the room with confidence. He probably expected me to look fragile. Instead, I placed printed copies of every questionable expense in front of him. When the mediator began reviewing hotel charges near Aurora's apartment, James shifted in his seat. I also discovered that the exercise bike he claimed I never used had activity logs showing he and Aurora using it together in my house when I was away. I mentioned it calmly during mediation and slid the printed log across the table. He struggled to explain. Then something unexpected happened. Aurora began to realize that James was not as wealthy as he pretended. She found out he was still paying off the ring he gave her. It was not even from the real luxury store. It came from a website that imitated it. She sent me screenshots. Conversations where he promised her expensive gifts. Plans for luxury apartments he could not afford. Messages where he spoke badly about me. I did not argue with her. I forwarded everything to my attorney. Professional handling of betrayal feels more powerful than public arguments. Then his mother called me. She had heard gossip in town. She apologized for his behavior. She admitted she had noticed his selfish tendencies before but hoped he would mature. She also revealed that James had been fired from his job. Not because of me. Because he had been submitting false expense reports for months. Those dinners with Aurora had been charged to his company. I considered exposing everything online. I could have shared screenshots. I could have humiliated him publicly. But I did not need to. His own actions were enough. Instead, I focused on my small studio apartment. I bought inexpensive plants. I learned how to mount a television by myself. I started cooking simple meals. It turns out I was not helpless in the kitchen. I just had never been allowed to experiment without criticism. James continued trying to contact me from new accounts. I blocked them. Months later, I overheard people discussing someone fired for fraud. It was him. Aurora eventually shared her side online without naming him. People connected the details. His reputation suffered. Meanwhile, I quietly returned items he had purchased through our shared account while we were still married. The refunds returned to my card because I was the original account holder. He did not notice until automated emails informed him. I did not celebrate loudly. I just kept moving forward. His sister Katie ran into me at a store one day. Instead of tension, she showed sympathy. She revealed that James had been borrowing money from their parents under false excuses. They discovered the truth during a family dinner. His father was furious. He removed James' access to their house. James tried to repair his image. Created new accounts. Sent messages. Showed up places uninvited. At one point, he tried to enter my workplace to speak to me. Security did not allow it. His leased car was eventually repossessed from the parking lot of a cheap motel where he had been staying. I happened to witness it by coincidence while buying coffee. Sometimes life delivers its own lessons. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. No dramatic courtroom scene. Just paperwork and signatures. He looked worn down. Aurora had left him quietly. No dramatic announcement. She simply moved on. He was renting a small room in a shared house. Working temporary jobs. Trying to rebuild. I remained at my job and received a modest raise. I learned how to file my own taxes. I fixed small problems in my apartment by watching instructional videos. I met someone at work. We shared lunches. Nothing serious. Just conversation. It felt refreshing to speak with someone who did not treat me like a burden. One day at the bank, the same teller who helped me open my account months earlier recognized me. She said I looked happier. And she was right. I was. Not because James failed. Not because Aurora left him. But because I proved something to myself. I can pay my bills. I can manage my finances. I can fix minor repairs. I can cook dinner. I can survive. For 15 years I believed I needed him. Now I understand that I never did. The most satisfying moment was not when his car was taken, not when he lost his job. It was standing at that bank counter, depositing my paycheck, feeling steady. No fear, no panic, just quiet confidence. He once told me I would not last a week without him. It has been months, and I am still here. Stronger, simpler, free, and truly happier. After the divorce papers day, everything moved fast. I stayed at Vivian's place because going back to the house felt unbearable. The house was quiet in a way that made my chest hurt. At Vivian's apartment, there was noise. Her kid running around. Toys everywhere. Dishes in the sink. Normal life. It helped me breathe again. I slept on the couch. My back ached. I did not care. I would rather have a sore back than lie alone in a bed that reminded me of lies. At first I kept thinking, maybe this is a bad dream. Maybe James will calm down and we will talk like adults. Maybe he will realize what he has done. But then reality slapped me in the face. One morning I tried to order something small online. Just basic items. Nothing fancy. The payment failed. My card was declined. For a moment I felt embarrassed, even though no one could see me. Then I felt scared. Because if my card did not work, that meant something was wrong. I called the bank. That phone call changed everything. The bank representative spoke in a polite voice, but the words felt heavy. She explained that the account did not have enough available funds, and there were recent transfers that looked unusual. I asked her to repeat it. I thought I must have misunderstood. My paycheck had always gone into savings. We had money. Not rich money, but enough to live. Then I remembered the jewelry receipt. The expensive name on the paper. The feeling in my stomach. I hung up and opened my laptop again. This time I did not look with hope. I looked with focus. I started scanning every transaction. I opened statements month by month. I searched for patterns. And I found them. Small transfers. Regular transfers. The kind you could miss if you were busy and trusting. 200 here. 300 there. Every couple of weeks. Always labeled as something normal. Car maintenance. Home repairs. Small emergencies. Just boring words. The boring words were the trick. Because boring words make you stop asking questions. When I added it up, I felt sick. The money was not disappearing by accident. It was being drained on purpose. Vivian sat beside me while I worked. She works at a bank. She knows what to look for. She pointed out things I would have ignored. She said, "This is classic control. This is the slow kind. The kind that makes you doubt yourself." I did not like hearing that. I wanted to believe James was just selfish, not calculating. But the evidence looked calculated. I felt foolish for trusting him. I felt ashamed for not noticing earlier. I kept replaying old moments in my mind. Times when he complained about small purchases I made for the house. Times when he asked why I needed something. Times when he made jokes about me being bad with money. Now those jokes did not feel like jokes. They felt like a warning I ignored. While going through papers, I found more strange receipts. Coffee shops near an area I rarely visited. Movie tickets from nights he told me he had meetings. Small things. But together they created a picture. A picture of a man who lived two lives and did not even respect me enough to hide it well. One day I went to a store to buy basics. Toothpaste. Shampoo. Things you grab when you are trying to build a temporary life out of a suitcase. I ran into James's cousin Matto. I froze. I expected an awkward moment. A fake smile. A quick goodbye. But Matto surprised me. He helped me choose a cheap printer. He asked if I was okay. Not in a dramatic way. Just calm and real. Then he told me something that made my skin go cold. He said James had done something similar years ago to a girlfriend from his younger days. He said James always had this pattern of acting charming until he got bored, then switching into cold and careless. I stood there holding the printer box and tried to breathe. Part of me was angry. Because if someone had told me this earlier, maybe I would have protected myself. Another part of me felt relieved. Because it meant I was not crazy. It was not all in my head. It was not because I was not good enough. It was who he was. James kept calling. In the beginning he called constantly. Like he was trying to wear me down with noise. My phone would light up again and again. At first his voicemails were furious. He demanded I answer. He accused me of being childish. He said I was embarrassing him. Then the messages shifted. Suddenly he sounded concerned. He texted things like, "I am worried about you. I hope you are handling the bills." It was almost funny. I had been paying my own phone bill for years. I had worked. I had contributed. But he liked to speak as if I was a helpless child. Aurora messaged me too. She sent a simple note that said we should talk sometime. I stared at the message and felt nothing but cold. What was there to talk about? She knew he was married. She was not innocent. She was part of it. I did not reply. Then I met my divorce attorney. She was not flashy. She did not speak like television lawyers. She was steady. Serious. She listened carefully. When I showed her the money transfers, her eyes narrowed. She asked for timelines. She asked for screenshots. She asked if I could access older statements. She said we needed to act quickly. She also told me to stop responding to James completely. No arguments. No emotional messages. No late-night texting. Nothing. Only documentation. That became my new routine. I created folders on my computer. I labeled them by month. I saved statements. I saved receipts. I took screenshots of every call and every message. It was exhausting, but it also gave me a strange kind of strength. Because the more I organized, the less powerless I felt. Then I found something else. I logged into an old shared email account, one we barely used anymore. It was full of advertisements and old confirmations. And there it was. Emails confirming a credit card I did not know about. Not a huge card. Not a fancy one. But it existed. And it was active. I checked the statements. Restaurants near her area. Gas stations near her area. Small charges that told a story. And then I saw gym charges that did not match the expensive class he bragged about. So even his fitness life was partly fake. He was trying to look like a certain kind of man. A man with money. A man with discipline. A man with power. In reality, he was borrowing from our future to play a role. I went to the bank and opened my own account. I remember my hands shaking while I signed the papers. Not because the process was hard. The process was simple. But because this felt like crossing a line I was never allowed to cross. The bank employee was kind. She explained the app. Showed me how to set alerts. How to track balances. How to move money safely. And I felt anger rise up inside me. Not at her. At James. Because none of this was difficult. He had just always acted like it was too complicated for me, so I would never ask questions. When I left the bank, I sat in my car and cried. Not because I missed him. Because I realized how small I had allowed myself to become. That night Vivian made us tea. We sat in her living room with the television on low volume. She looked at me and said, "You are not useless. You were just controlled." I did not answer right away. I just stared at the cup in my hands. Then I nodded. Because for the first time, I could finally say it out loud. I was not useless. I had been living under someone else's story about me. And now I was writing my own. The weeks after that felt like walking through fog. Not because I was confused anymore, but because everything was new. I moved into a small studio apartment across town. It was not fancy. The walls were plain. The kitchen was tiny. The bathroom light flickered sometimes. But it was mine. The first night I slept there, I lay awake listening to the quiet. It was different from the quiet in the house James and I shared. That quiet had felt heavy. This quiet felt open. I did not have much furniture at first. A mattress. A small table. A chair. I bought cheap storage bins to organize my things. I assembled them myself. It took longer than it probably should have, but I did it. Every small task felt like proof. Proof that I could function without him. At work, I focused hard. I did not want to be the woman who fell apart after divorce. I wanted to be steady. Reliable. My manager noticed that I was careful with details. He asked me to help organize some office files. Then he asked me to help with spreadsheets. I watched tutorials at night to learn more about the software. I practiced until I understood it. The more I learned, the more confident I became. It started to feel almost ironic. James always said I was scattered. That I did not understand finances. That I could not manage complex tasks. Yet here I was, learning systems and organizing information with precision. I used those same skills for my divorce case. Every receipt. Every transaction. Every message. All printed. All labeled. All in order. When we had our first mediation meeting, James walked in like he expected me to be fragile. He wore one of his expensive dress shirts. He looked polished. Aurora was not there, but I could almost feel her presence in the air between us. He smiled in a tight way, like this was just a formality. Then my attorney began speaking. She did not raise her voice. She did not insult him. She simply laid out the evidence. Transfers. Hotel charges. Restaurant bills. The hidden credit card. The gym discrepancies. James's smile faded slowly. When the mediator asked him to explain certain charges, he hesitated. I did not interrupt. I did not glare at him. I just watched. The most uncomfortable moment came when I presented the exercise bike activity log. It showed days and times when the bike was used in our house while I was away. He tried to laugh it off. Tried to say it was nothing. But it was something. It was disrespect in physical form. After mediation, his calls became less angry and more desperate. He started saying things like, "We can still fix this. You are overreacting. Think about everything we built." I thought about everything we built. And I realized most of it had been built on silence. Around that time, something unexpected happened. Aurora contacted me again. This time it was different. She did not ask to talk. She sent screenshots. Messages where James promised her things he clearly could not afford. Messages where he mocked me. Messages where he exaggerated his income and position. She wrote one sentence. "I thought you should know who he really is." I did not thank her. I did not argue. I forwarded the screenshots to my attorney. If James wanted to lie to multiple women at once, that was his choice. But those lies would now exist on record. Soon after, I heard through friends that James had been fired. Not because of me. Because his company discovered he had been charging personal expenses as business costs. Apparently, this was not a one-time mistake. It had been happening for months. I remember sitting in my small kitchen when I heard the news. I expected to feel satisfaction. Or anger. Or some dramatic emotion. Instead I felt calm. His actions were finally catching up to him. I did not need to do anything. One evening, while buying groceries, I ran into his sister. She looked embarrassed at first. Then she hugged me. She told me James had been borrowing money from their parents, saying it was for investments. They later discovered it was funding his lifestyle with Aurora. There had been an argument at a family dinner. His father had been furious. I listened quietly. It felt strange to hear about his life like he was a distant acquaintance. Meanwhile, my own life was slowly stabilizing. I learned to cook simple meals. I burned a few dishes at first. I laughed at myself instead of feeling ashamed. I learned how to reset a tripped breaker in my apartment. I called maintenance when I needed help. I asked questions without embarrassment. I joined a gym, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to feel strong in my own body. One afternoon, I saw James in the parking lot of that gym. He looked thinner, tired. He avoided my eyes. We passed each other without speaking. It was not dramatic. It was quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something powerful. I no longer felt small around him. The divorce was finalized months later. No shouting. No courtroom battle. Just signatures. He looked older. Worn down. The expensive clothes did not look impressive anymore. Aurora had left him by then. I moved forward. I received a small raise at work. It was not life-changing money, but it was mine. I learned to do my own taxes. I fixed small things in my apartment without calling anyone for permission. James occasionally tried to contact me through new accounts. Usually late at night. The messages were bitter. You will regret this. You cannot make it without me. I blocked each one without responding. The funniest part was discovering he kept a document in our shared drive labeled passwords. He had written them down plainly. I did not misuse them. I simply informed his sister so she could tell him to change everything. Not revenge. Just boundaries. One day I found our old wedding photos while cleaning. I sat on the floor and looked at them. That woman in the white dress looked hopeful. Eager to please. Trying very hard to be the perfect partner. I felt compassion for her. She did not know she would one day sit in a small apartment, alone, and realize she was stronger than she ever believed. The most meaningful moment came at the bank. I walked in to deposit my paycheck. I like doing it in person sometimes. It feels real. The teller who helped me open my account months earlier recognized me. She smiled and said, "You look happier." I paused. Then I smiled back. I said. And I meant it. Not because James failed. Not because Aurora left him. But because I proved to myself that I could stand on my own. He called me useless. He said I would not survive. He was wrong. I pay my bills. I manage my accounts. I cook my meals. I fix what I can. I ask for help when I need it. I am not extraordinary. I am simply capable. And that is more than enough. If there is one thing I learned from all of this, it is that control can look like love. Sometimes it sounds like concern. Sometimes it sounds like protection. Sometimes it sounds like someone saying, "Let me handle that for you." And little by little, you start believing you cannot handle it yourself. For years I believed I was bad with money. I believed I was too scattered to understand finances. I believed I needed James to manage the serious parts of life. None of that was true. It was just a story he repeated until I accepted it. The real turning point in my life was not the divorce papers. It was not the mediation meetings. It was not when he lost his job. It was the moment I opened my own bank account with shaking hands. It was the moment I realized the systems he said were too complicated were actually simple. It was the moment I stopped asking whether I could survive and started proving that I could. There was no dramatic revenge scene. No public humiliation posted online. No shouting matches. Just paperwork. Quiet rebuilding. And steady growth. James believed I would collapse without him. Instead, I built a smaller life that fits me better. I live in a modest apartment that feels peaceful. I work a job that may not be glamorous but pays my bills. I manage my own finances. I cook my own meals. I fix small problems without panic. Nothing extraordinary. Just independence. If you are reading this and someone in your life has convinced you that you cannot function without them, pause. Ask yourself who benefits from that belief. Being underestimated can hurt. But it can also be freeing. Because once you realize you are capable, you do not need to prove it to anyone else. You just live it. I am no longer the woman who waited for permission. I am no longer the woman who doubted her own ability. I am simply someone who learned the hard way that strength does not arrive loudly. It grows quietly. And sometimes the greatest victory is not watching someone else fall. It is standing steady on your own feet and realizing you are happier than you have been in years.